And we're back, Nintendo Treehouse Live, Indie Day. I am here with some very special guests. I have Vinny from Nintendo of America, Publisher and Developer Relations Team, and, oh my gosh, from Double Fine Productions, we have Lee, the Creative Director, and Kevin, the producer of RAD. It's right there on Kevin's shirt. This game is, well, you guys, tell us about it.
It's RAD.
It's RAD.
Yes, it's our built-in positive review, so thank you for helping us.
I'm going to do my best to not make that pun on stream.
I know.
It's hard. For breaking the ice.
It's hard. Yeah, for years when we had the game unannounced, we'd be like, what are you working on? We'd say, well, we're working on something RAD.
And here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, so RAD is a top-down action roguelike game that takes place in the post-apocalypse.
Post-apocalypse.
Yeah,
huh.
yeah. I mean, because one apocalypse is like phoning it in nowadays. We got to do two.
Yeah, you got to go after the party of the world ending. Basically.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Things keep happening. So you play a young character, a teenager, in a town that lives kind of on the edge of the wasteland and has managed to survive for some time, but they've lost their power source. It's failing, so they can't nourish the crops or purify the air, and someone must go on a quest to find new power for the town. And of course, that's where our player character comes in.
Yeah, and we're seeing some of those characters right now, I believe, on the character select screen. You can already see that style just everywhere.
Yeah, you know, the first sort of apocalyptic incident in our game takes place in the 80s, you know, and so that was kind of a starting point for building some of our world, and style is kind of around that.
You can really tell, yeah, to Morgan's point, it just oozes from the art to the music to everything.
Yeah, we have a lot of, I think we have, last count was 45 different music tracks in the game. You know, it's a really big soundtrack, too.
Can we get that later, maybe?
Yeah. And so, you know, when you start a new game, you get this cutscene, and it's really the only cutscene we have in the game. You know, this kind of sets up the big story, and the town is kind of governed by the Elder, who is this mysterious character who kind of wears this mask, this outfit, and so you're not really sure, you know, what he's about at the start of the game. It's something you kind of slowly uncover. But he's telling the town, like, we need someone to go out into the wasteland to help us. But of course, if you were just to kind of send one of these people out into the wasteland, they would just kind of succumb to the toxins. So what we're going to see here is that the Elder is asking for someone to volunteer, and of course, only the youth is able to do this because their DNA is malleable, as we find out. So the Elder selects them, and we go through the ritual of the remaking, where the Elder is going to use some of the technology from the second civilization that we call the Menders to modify the character's genetic makeup so they can absorb the toxins, or the RADs, as they're called in this world. And instead of just succumbing to them, the player character will mutate over time randomly. And that's kind of where our game's unique mechanic kind of comes into play.
So roguelike and mutation sounds like it's going to make for a pretty fun combination.
You might say it's a RAD-like.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, here we go. Tell us about the guitar.
Yes. So we have a lot of guitar in the game. But, you know, it's the Elder refers to it as the summoner. And so he sort of modified this guitar to manipulate the machinery of the Menders. Since they're long gone and no one knows how to really work it, he's kind of managed to make it work.
Well, I'm glad in a post-apocalypse you can still have some style, because I've noticed, you know, the youth, they're dressed pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's not whether you win or lose our game, it's how you look doing it. That's what it's all about.
I'm excited to see what mutations we see in this run, because like you said, everyone's different, and it's going to be really cool to see what we get.
Yeah, the world is procedurally generated, and the mutations you get are different every time you play. So we'll see what happens, but the one part of our game that is sort of a persistent hub to the whole experience is the town. And so what we're seeing here is a little snippet of the town, and the Elder's activating the transference gates. And when the player goes through that, it'll take them to a random place out into the fallow, which is what we call the wasteland. But the town itself is persistent. So all of the stuff that you do over runs, you can upgrade the town. So there's an armory pass, and you can unlock other melee weapons that have different abilities, and they'll kind of show up there. There's a town shop here, Shermie's shop, and she starts with, like, you know, one little item on a table. But over time, you can upgrade it, and she gets a whole facade and neon lights. Looks like a Sam Goody store from the 1980s, you know, in a mall. So
yeah.
you get the...
And like you said, you're not going to lose that if you die on one of your runs. You'll get to keep that.
Right. This is, yeah, it's sort of a storytelling hub, because you've got, like, town characters you can interact with over time, and they each have, some of them, little side quests and stories. But it's also a way for the player to kind of over several runs, improve the town visually, and but also to give themselves advantages in the game they don't necessarily start off getting. So,
Totally, and I am a huge fan of roguelike, and I think that's a big part for me is the progression. Kind of once you're dead and what carries over, in addition to sort of the the mental memory, right?
Yeah, and we have this theme in our game that as you continue, and you'll see as we start to mutate, your character becomes less human-looking. So you're sort of sacrificing your humanity to kind of help save the world, if you will, and the people's reactions to you changes as you come back into town based on your appearance. We have like unique dialogue for all that sort of stuff. So the teenagers hang out here in this sort of area. They think they're being rebellious, but they're really like 5 feet away from all the adults. It's like the only place they can go.
Wow, playing some arcade games over there.
Yeah, we've got some breakdancing. They're playing some arcade games. The teens are kind of, in some ways, jealous of you because even though they're kind of scared of what could be out there, it's really a chance for you to like make an impact, to kind of see the world because they've never really left this kind of contained area here.
Right. What's this machine over here? I think I cut you off earlier. You had a comment about this machine maybe over here.
Oh yeah, so this is Mac. Mac is a speak and spell style device that's been strapped to an old computer in an ATM. So he's the banker. And so if you invest in Mac, Mac will expand your capabilities. So you'll start to like save some of your money on death, or there's a remote network of ATMs out into the wasteland that you can activate to like, withdraw or deposit money depending on which features you've unlocked.
I love that. Got it.
Shall we head to the wasteland here? Let's see.
You got this, Kevin.
Yeah. This is where it gets random. What's gonna happen, Kevin?
Yeah, and you guys are helping make this game, but you have no idea what we're about to see.
Yeah. Well, and that's I think there are plenty of other roguelikes that have a little bit more of a role-playing game vibe to them. Mm-hmm. And really what we wanted to do is not only make the world randomized, but make the player randomized. That's the unexpected drama that I think makes roguelike so interesting.
I'm so excited. It's going to make a lot more sense. You guys are going to see that happen. It's awesome.
And when you start out into a new world like this, you just have your bat, and the bat has a couple special properties to it, and we have a pretty good melee combo system that's always there. And the mutations will kind of add to that, or you'll see as we get them. But when the player moves through the world and they defeat muties, they'll start to fill their RAD meter at the top as their body starts to absorb the toxins. And when it fills, that's when you get that mutation. So we'll see here what happens. You can also see that as the player moves through the world, they're leaving behind a trail of new growth. You see the kind of grass there. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a byproduct of the way they've been modified. Like their body is like a walking humidifier or filter system. It kind of pulls the toxins out of the world and is leaving behind a little bit of growth.
A little bit of love, yeah. And I could even see some completionists out there trying to scrape the whole map and really, paint the world green.
Yeah, like as we just saw that object that was activated there, you saw a lot of that regrowth just happen like in a big whoosh.
Yeah.
It mechanically it helps the player know where they've been because, our procedural levels are not small room to rooms. They're kind of a bigger, more open-aired experience. So, there's a lot to explore, and that is just a great visual way to say, oh, I've been here or I haven't been there.
Right.
You can see Kevin fell off the cliff, but the starting bat the player gets, which is known as the Elder Bat, it will teleport you back up if you fall off a cliff, and so you lose a little bit of health, but it's not like an insta-kill or anything.
Right.
There's other bats that you can unlock that have much more pronounced melee attacks, but then maybe don't save you as much when you fall off cliffs. So it's kind of a choice you have to make.
I see.
So the growth that you leave behind you is not only, like I said, to let you know where you've been, but it also speeds up retraversal. So when you run on it, you move a little faster. We just mutated.
Mutation.
So you see he's mutated, and one of his arms is turned to a firearm.
Oh.
And so now he's got ranged ability, which he didn't have before.
It's a literal firearm. I love that.
Yeah, we have a lot of really bad puns in the game, especially as it comes to mutation names. So yeah, we have a firearm, and all of our mutations kind of have a real obvious use. Like you probably saw on the pop-up when he got it that it says, hey, yeah, you can aim with the right stick, and if you hit this button, you'll shoot a fireball.
Right now, I believe he's trying to clear out this area for this respirator. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the high-level goal that you have in every level is that you have to find these objects called respirators, and when you transform them, you sort of activate them using, you see these like vines connect you to the device. When you activate it, it has a laser that shoots from its mouth and points to where you need to go. And so, you can open your mini-map and inspect it, and you can kind of see, you can kind of scroll around and zoom in and out. You can kind of see where those lasers are connecting. So there's lots to explore, but just the very high level, activate these respirators, they'll point you to these gates that they power with their lasers. You go through that, you fight some sort of boss, and then you...
It's also random, right?
Yeah, which is also random, and see how long you can survive.
Right.
And you see, we also have this whole elaborate set of interiors levels, and these aren't usually mandatory, but they contain shops and better loot, and they're a little more dangerous because you're a little more closed in as well.
Saw a floppy disk there, a puzzle cube.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe for the youngins that might not know, be familiar with the floppy disk or cassette tape.
Yeah, our currency are cassettes, and the keys in the games are floppies, So the people in the now, which is what the sort of current timeline in the game is called, calls the sort of 80s civilization the Ancients, and then the second civilization are the Minders. And all these weird sci-fi tunnels were made by the Minders to try and kind of reconnect the world after the nuclear apocalypse just shattered everything.
Wow.
But there's a lot of almost like they don't really understand what those cultures are around, so they think like cassettes and floppies were of significance. They use them as like common currency and things like that.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. There are a lot of them laying around.
Yeah. It looks like Kevin just picked up an endo mutation.
Yeah, so we have these sort of exo mutations like the firearm, and we have a whole separate system for endo mutations that come from interacting with these various Minder machines. And you can have any number of those, and they're kind of like passive abilities. So you see, we found this. You can also find communities out in the wasteland. This is a group of people called the Cathode Raiders, and they're really obsessed with 80s technology and the 4:3 aspect ratio. That's who doesn't love that? But they, sometimes they'll have little side quests for you to do, and so in this case, they wanted their fire lit, and hey, Kevin happened to have a firearm, so he could light it for them.
Right.
And that just feels like it was planned, but it was
random.
Yeah, it's very serendipitous. Wow.
So we didn't really want the community interactions. Our game isn't about people shooting other people and arguing over resources. It's really about everyone kind of wants the world fixed, if you will,
Yeah.
And they each have their own obsessions and their own way of dealing with the sort of issue.
And I was going to say, like, even it's a post-apocalypse, it's quite colorful, and it's not like a dreary sort of apocalypse that, I'm kind of used to.
Yeah, there's that post-apocalyptic wasteland. That's kind of a common trope, but you guys sort of took this whole new take on it, in my mind, is like regrowing this, adding this beauty back into that. Can you talk even more about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think one of the things that we thought about when kind of coming up of our take on, he looks like he found a secret bomb shelter.
Yeah, if I can get up to it.
You can get up, try the TV there to your right.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so we've got these secret interiors you can find. So this one took a floppy key, and now he's sort of discovered a little bomb shelter. So, we have a lot of little hidden things.
I've played like 30 hours at this back of the office, and I have not seen a single one. So
we've got a lot of hidden stuff in the game.
Wow.
So he found another Cathode Raider. You see, this is Brother Ampere, who's been sort of trapped down here, and he's like really. So when we try to make any of the interactions, and he gives you a floppy as like a thank you for helping rescue him. We try to make all the interactions with other people positive, because on some level there's this meta arc that goes over the whole game, and as you finish a successful run, you get a story drop, and all of these communities you find and interact across all of our biomes ultimately all play a part in kind of saving the world. But it takes many hours to see that whole meta story, so it's just kind of thematically woven through the levels.
Well, yeah, whether it's adding a flower or a piece of grass to a barren spot of dirt on the micro level or the macro, the whole story, it kind of all has that regrowth and rebirth and everyone working together, which is a really cool apocalyptic angle, I think.
Yeah, I think, when we started making this game, why is Apocalypse relevant for us? And I think we sort of have this kind of obvious theme, but something that's still very relevant, which is that, these two older generations, these older civilizations have kind of destroyed this world and left it to rot. And who's going to fix the world? It's the young people, right? And so you've got these teens that all the hope is placed in these teens. And kind of what you find by playing the game is they're ultimately saving it for themselves. They're not just following orders. Ultimately, it's up to them to do it and the sacrifice for them to make. And maybe it's not fair, but that's what it is.
That sounds a little familiar, but also quite deep.
Yeah, and I think it's the same. It's the same sort of angst people play. But that really got us thinking about regrowth and the transformation. And wouldn't it be neat if you could just by taking on this quest and maybe sacrificing something, couldn't you the world just got ambiently more verdant, started to regrow. That little trickle of hope in there.
It's really cool and beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
And now, so Kevin is activated those respirators, and we've gotten into, this is a mini boss fight. So, all of our mutants come in a few different flavors. We have the sort of base mutants, and we have evolved and alpha versions of them. And the alpha version he's fighting here, they have, of course, a lot more health, but they tend to have extra moves or extra abilities or attacks that the base ones don't have. So this guy's got, this is an enemy we call the Smushroom, because it kind of looks like a mushroom and it smashes itself down.
Yeah,
but Kevin got it.
Yeah.
He's a pro.
Ranged Exo Mutation can be really helpful for that fight.
Heart mod.
So you see when you defeat an alpha, they often drop a heart, and if you, I guess, devour the heart. I would never think of it that way. If you absorb the heart, how about that? It actually split his first heart, so you can see on his heart bar there, he's got the first one has got 3 pieces, and then 2. So between all of our levels, you as a player can choose to go back to town, or you can kind of go to the next procedurally generated wasteland level. And so we're just going to go to the next level, but a player could choose to go back to town for a lot of reasons. Like you might have money, and you might think you're going to die, so you go back to town, deposit some of it to keep it for a future run, or maybe you found something you think you can plant in the town farm, and that's another sort of upgrade path we have where you can find these strange fruits growing in your grass trail and pick them. And if you eat them right away, it gives you an immediate benefit. But if you save them and go back to town, you could plant them and find out and see if something happens. We won't spoil it all.
I love it.
But we leave that to the player, whether they like to kind of control that flow as much as possible. You want to go back?
Yeah, take a breather, deposit some money in the crazy ATM connected to a spelling machine, whatever. Or just keep on rolling.
Yeah, Kevin's feeling confident. Don't need to go back to town.
Yeah, we'll see. So, we have, as you play the game, the biomes progress. And we have sort of 2 levels per biome, kind of vaguely themed. So we're in the kind of the cracked lands here. But each of those biomes can have randomized time of day, randomized weather that can really mix up the experience, as well as, of course, the whole layout being procedurally generated.
There's just so many different elements. So, there's no way a single run could be anywhere near the same. It's just going to be, wow.
It's quite a bit different.
Right.
Now, you can get multiple mutations, so probably somewhere in this level, Kevin's character will mutate again, and we'll see how that works with fire. And sometimes you wind up getting 2 mutations that work beautifully together. Sometimes they're a little more challenging together. Sometimes they even have hidden combos where you can kind of use them together to get a whole new ability.
So pretty much you could play this game forever and still not find every single combination.
That's what we're aiming for, forever. You see that Kev was demonstrating there too that Firearm has this fireball use, but if you ground pound and use your mutation button, it actually leaves a fire propagation like circle that you can kind of use for defense to kind of kite enemies through. And that's just sort of like a small example of kind of a hidden combo that you only have while you have Firearm.
Yeah, and I love that about roguelikes like this, where you have these mutations. You never know when you're going to have a certain combination of weapon or ability with a certain enemy. So even if you have a really hard run and you maybe die, you're going to gain some knowledge or like the way something interacts, and maybe file it away for the next time you encounter something like that.
Yeah. Well, you can see too that just some of the basic terrain shapes. You see in this level we happen to have a lot of mountain shapes. And in the first level we didn't. It was pretty flat. Right. And that's random. We have totally different terrain sets even within the same biome. So the sort of elevation's an interesting one because you can only get so far up it by default. But some mutations, we have mutations like wings that will let you kind of flap all the way up to the top.
I remember I picked up an endo mutation with double jump. Blew my mind. Yeah, it adds another layer of verticality to your point. It's awesome.
Yeah, and being able to double jump increases not only the power of your ground pounds, but also lets you access these upper levels you might be able to get to. And there's let's say there might be secrets up there as well. So
I have a feeling there might be a couple.
one of the other things that you hear while you're playing the game a lot is this sort of voice of the elder who's kind of narrating what's going on. So it's kind of there for comedic relief a bit, you know. He kind of just we just thought it's funny, like even our pause menu and stuff, he just says every menu name. He's just like pause or you know. And we recorded like all these alternate takes on the lines. Every time you hit pause, it sounds different, or start a game.
I would have loved to be in the room for that. Jeez.
Yeah, we need 50 takes on pause. Go. But the idea there is that, you know, he's kind of ostensibly guiding you through this experience, you know, from afar, if you want to say it that way. But he's also, you know, he has imperfect knowledge of the civilizations that came before them. So that's where we get some of our humor from, too, is the sort of descriptions and dialogue you write where they're telling you what actually happened in history and it's completely wrong, you know. So he oftentimes kind of evokes terms that might have been used in the 80s because he believes they hold power. You know, they're like to bring the player good fortune. So, you know.
God, and these kids don't know any better, right? Because it's a post-apocalypse.
That's right.
See another respirator raised right there.
Yep.
I just can't get enough of that effect when it.
Yeah, it's what's also interesting about some of those bigger moments of transformation like that is another thing that you can see one that grew over there. So you see this, we call this a happy fruit over there. When Kevin takes out this enemy, you can see it, and they're hard to spot, and they will grow only in transformation. And so you might see one pop up in your trail, but you're most likely to see them in these kind of big moments. And if you pick it up, it's now this consumable. And he could eat that right now and it heals him, and those would only grow in your transformation. But that's an example of the type of thing you could also try and take back to town, or you could try, there's various other ways to use objects in our game, but that's something you could only get from your growth.
So you never know when you might need to go back and get some health back. You're totally right.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the ways, you know, because we kind of invested a lot of time in creating a bigger sense of world, we wanted to make sure there was a lot of things the player could do for exploration, not just, you know, combat from room to room combat. We wanted to have just a little richer place to kind of find secrets and little things like the fruit.
This would be so fun to design, but I can't imagine how you make it random as well at the same time. Jeez.
It's pretty challenging, yeah. You know, like it's one of the first sort of fully random games procedural games we've done at Double Fine, and you know, there's always a balance between, you know, the player wants a new experience each time, but you can't really balance it so it's the same experience each time. You know, you want those moments where you have those really highs, you know, where everything just seems to come together and you have like the best run ever, but you have to counter that with like really terribly, tragically bad runs, but are still fun on some level. You know, you're like, oh, I got my mutation I was terrible with, I bounced myself off a cliff, I died, this mutant stole all of my money, and I had an acid pool and the game was over. You know, that.
But hey, that's roguelikes for you, right?
Yeah,
it is. You might learn something along the way, right?
Yeah, so here's another one of those endo mutation machines. So this will kind of give them, so you see this one gave him a fire heart. So this is a heart type that only absorbs fire damage, but it recharges itself, regenerates over time, so you don't actually have to heal it. So it's kind of a trade-off, like, doesn't protect you against all damage, but you don't have to use health potions. So you can see in our top right, the little icon there shows us that Kevin has activated one of the 3 respirators, but he's still got 2 to find. Let's see if Kevin can do it in time so we can see the boss. This is a traveling merchant here. This is a little character we call Eli, and he's a potion kind of expert. So he sold Kevin's character a potion that when he ingested it gave him an endo mutation. So we have like different ways you can get him. So he got hot foot, which means he can now walk on fire and take no damage.
Sounds like a fire thematic going on here.
Yeah. It's just the way it stacks up. We'll see. All right, so he just took a RAD potion, which gave him enough RADs that he mutated again. So
gnarly.
Did he get like
gnarly?
He got like giant goat legs or something.
He's got tree trunk legs.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah, you know, clear. So yeah, one of the fun things we did is whenever you pause the game, it kind of just like freezes the game as it is and lets you kind of rotate around and see your character up close. So it's kind of fun. You can even like be in the middle of a combat move or something and pause it and get a
cool. See a little jump kick pause.
The karate kick pause is always, there you go. So we've got a long pause.
So quickly again, so our character started off relatively normal. We've added a arm made out of fire. We've got tree trunk legs. We've got, I can't even keep track. That's awesome.
And what gnarly will do, so gnarly is a slightly different, the firearm, of course, is like a direct damage range thing. Gnarly is kind of a crowd control style mutation. When you use it near a mutant, it'll send out vines into the world and hold them in place where they can't move for a short period of time. And so let's see if it works here on this guy. Yeah, so see, it kind of freezes them in place. But the interesting thing about that with firearm in particular is that gnarly will also make them momentarily flammable, because it's kind of like the vines are flammable. So that's kind of a combo that only exists when you have these two mutations, and that's again something the player would normally have to discover.
That's so cool. Yeah, he's like creating those like piles of scorched earth, like burning up the foliage he just put down. Awesome.
And gnarly is one of those that is a little trickier to use, say, than firearm, because its use is a lot more timing and radius based with crowd control. But so some players are, we've had this closed beta and gotten a lot of feedback on our mutations. And some players are like, oh, I don't really like this one as much in the early levels. But then if you have it in the later levels where you're just being surrounded by so many enemies, it's really indispensable,
really helpful, right?
So you kind of learn, like, well, maybe it's not the best now, but it's going to be great if I get to that point. And we do give the player some agency over the mutations, even though they can't, say, start a run necessarily and pick the exact mutation they want. There are machines and other things in the game they can find that let them swap them out or let them level them up further. And so the player, can kind of like control that a bit, can influence their destiny. Or like you saw, buy potions that then give them mutations as well. So Kevin only found one respirator. Oh, and there's another little hidden secret there. You notice that door embedded in the wall there.
Yeah, I don't know if these enemies are going to let me take a moment for that.
Yeah.
But I love that Kevin's kind of using everything at his disposal.
He is,
right?
yeah.
Melee, his Exo, Endo, everything.
So these also take keys open, and so this is our cave system. So we have a whole nother set of procedural undergrounds that are caves, and these are kind of some of the most difficult interiors. And you see they have these sort of albino versions of mutants that live in here because they don't ever see the light, and they're sort of translucent and creepy. The difficulty can really ramp up in the caves because they're totally optional, but I don't want to spoil all the secrets, but there's some pretty cool things you can find in caves as well. But we're not going to fully explore it now because that would take us a little while. We're going to try and get to the boss if we can.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we're gonna find that boss.
So we haven't even gone back to town. Risky.
Yeah. Oh, there's a respirator. So you see that plant there is called a throbber, and what you just saw is an enemy shoot one of his friends because he tried to hit the player, missed him, hit that, it bounced off, and when that happens, it'll actually reverse the allegiance on those projectiles, and so he actually damaged one of his mutie pals. So.
And this is a good example of you kind of have to clear the area out before you can raise that respirator.
Yeah, because we don't lock the player in rooms, which is kind of the mechanic of a lot of our roguelites, where you're like, well, the door isn't open until you kill everyone.
Yeah.
We want the player to have a little more free-form combat, use the environment, use cover, get on things, do ground pounds off elevation, but they still have to use some tactics. You can't just like run past all the enemies and turn on that and just that's a really tricky proposition too, because you only mutate as you get the sort of the RADs from the mutants. So you can speedrun our game. We have a daily challenge mode, and that's kind of our community connection, and that's a fun one because players can either choose to scrape the map and mutate more, maybe get more items, or they can try and speedrun and get speed bonuses. But then you have to be really good because you're going to mutate less and maybe not find health potions.
Right. It's really
that's exciting. I love a daily speedrun challenge, so that's like right in my alley.
Yeah, and we have daily challenges are fun because we also have a quirk system in our game, and a quirk is something that in the daily challenge is randomly assigned. So sometimes you get no quirk, it's a standard rule. Sometimes you get a quirk that's things like, we have one called Glass Cannon, where you double damage, but you have like half the health, right? Or we have one called Shark Style, where like if you ever stop moving, you start to take damage. So but your speed is buffed, and there's more health drops. You just have to constantly keep moving. So, we kind of throw those curveballs at the community in our daily challenge mode.
How much fun did you and your team have just designing and putting names and adding all these amazing puns?
We really like to name stuff. Yeah, we have this huge Tome of the Ancients in our pause menu for the players to unlock, and it lists like all the mutants and all the mutations and all the consumables and all the artifacts. And so if you're a completionist, we've got a piece of concept art, and a little sort of backstory, lore description from each of those things, and it's kind of a fun kind of meta game to kind of play this.
Right, just get a little bit more involved with the world and the environment and the lore.
Yeah.
This map is not being kind.
Yeah, so I don't think we're gonna have time to quite get to the boss today, but I will say that we get these every second level you get full boss, and the full bosses also are totally randomized. So the player knows like, oh, it'll probably be this type of boss, but they don't know for sure what they're gonna get.
Cool. Well, I mean, if you think we're a little bit too far from the boss, I think that's a great place to stop. Leave a little something for people to look forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys have a little bit more info about sort of what the game's coming and a little bonus to talk about.
Yeah, the game will be out on August 20th. And we have a pre-order bonus that we just announced the other day that I'd like to talk about. That's pretty cool. So
yeah, so I think we've got some art here up. You can see that's the stream feed over there.
So the pre-order bonus comes with 2 unique character styles. So we have that's Turbo on the left and Glitch on the right. And you'll notice that they're also wearing some Bandai Namco licensed arcade game properties. So we were managed to work with, they're our publisher of this game. We've worked with them to get Pac-Man and Dig Dug and Galaga and other properties actually in the game. So the arcade bat is also part of the pre-order bonus, and it plays like actual coin-op sounds from those properties as you hit mutants, and they kind of pixelate and de-res. So that's all part of the pre-order bonus, those 2 character skins and the bat.
When I saw that Pac-Man immediately, right, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I love that. And when can we expect? I think you guys have a launch date, so can you just remind everyone what that is?
We'll be out on August 20th, and we're looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Well, I think Kevin's still hunting for that boss, but
yeah, man,
give it up, Kevin.
But really, Kevin, Lee, I really want to thank you guys from coming by from Double Fine Productions. Vincent, thank you. And you guys don't go anywhere. Nintendo E3 Treehouse Live Indie Day rolls on. We are coming right back with a look at the Dark Crystal's Age of Resistance tactics. So stay tuned.